Live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. This is Roy Kessel for Sports Philanthropy Network, and today we're very excited to have with us Jonah Wittkamper. Jonah is joining us to talk about the work that he's doing, and I know it's a big project that you're undertaking here. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you got involved with this.
Great, thanks so much. I'll give you 15 seconds on background and then I'll tell you about this project. So I grew up mostly in New York City. Back in January 2000, I co-founded a global association of youth organizations around the United Nations. In July of 2011, we got the United Nations to host its first ever Global Young Philanthropy Summit. We built an organization called Nexus. It has young people from many of the world's most philanthropic families involved. It's all over the world. In 2020, many of us looked at the problem in the Amazon rainforest, and we realized that it's at the edge of a tipping point and that we need to shift the economies there away from deforestation and towards reforestation and forest protection. So we started organizing online summits and a podcast series, and over the past 4 years, we've made over 300 connections between investors around the world and projects in the Amazon. That's resulted in more than $50 million in new investing. And that this idea that the forest can be worth more alive and standing than cut and burned, that idea is coming to life because the Amazon is home to 30% of the world's species, and we can't lose that.
Well, and I think one of the things we talked about with some of your other colleagues as we were going through this discussion is just the magnitude of the impact on a global scale, right? People often think about, okay, the fires in LA, right, impacted LA, right? But what is the impact across the United States, across the world, right? And we don't know that exactly yet, right? When you look at all of these changes that are going on in the ecosystem of the Amazon, right, they have a significant impact globally.
Yes, it's true. Many scientists call the Amazon a central pump, if not the central pump of the global water cycle. The water evaporates from the Atlantic Ocean, it blows in over the Amazon rainforest, it falls, it gets recirculated up into the air by those trees, it creates these flying rivers, it propagates rain patterns all over the world. They are detected as far away as Tibet. The weather models suggest that if we lose the Amazon, the western parts of the western United States could lose up to 50% of their precipitation. A major news article came out, or in a research piece 1 year ago, actually almost to the day, that showed that unless we reforest 5% of the Amazon, we actually will lose it. It'll dry out and burn away. That means extraordinary loss of biodiversity, new pandemics, migration, and drought. People are worried about desertification. The Amazon is ground zero for preventing desertification at a global level.
And I think one thing that's super interesting here as we look at this, you talked about that being sort of the central, like the heart, right, of the global water system. And most people have never had the good fortune of going and spending any time in the Amazon, right, and really understanding the enormity of what is there, right? You can read about it, you can watch some videos, but that's not the same as experiencing it. And then unless you take the time to really research, as you said, and go through those models, excuse me, those simulations, right, you don't recognize what that ongoing impact is going to be.
It's true. And tourism in the Amazon is one of those things that is responsible tourism is one of those things that not only can educate a lot of new people about the region, but also can help contribute to these regenerative economic cycles that change the calculus of any given person on the ground. Any given person on the ground who is right at the edge of these trees might be making this calculus. Do I try to make money, mining or working in the city or cutting down the tree? Grandma has health issues. If I cut down those trees and sell the wood, I'll get the access to the money shorter term, etc. Unless we have ecotourism in the region and other things that are bringing different kinds of wealth as opposed to deforestation wealth, then that trend of deforestation can continue. And so one of the big questions beyond understanding that biodiversity and the wealth creation that can come from it is we also need to build new coalitions at an economic and global level that give birth to that new economic vision. The forest is worth more alive and standing than cut and burn.
Well, and I want you to share with our audience sort of the vision of what you are involved in, like what your role is in this fight.
So in 2011, I co-founded this global network of philanthropic families. So my work in this fight is organizing philanthropic families and investor families. It's also creating and helping to fund the creation of these new economic cycles. So that means helping indigenous cooperatives participate in the global economic system. That's a challenging thing. These are groups that in many cases they don't have roads, they don't have the proper technology that is needed for supply chain traceability or food safety standards, et cetera. There's all of this new tech that has come out in the past 25 years since the world made a big run at this idea of a wealth creation Amazon. And so what we're doing is doing research about those technologies, going to the forest, making friends with the people who live, they call them ribeirinhos, riverside communities, but also indigenous communities, and helping them learn the skills of entrepreneurship and participation in the global capitalist system.
It's so important because you talked about building this network of these philanthropic families, right? And the wealth, just as in most part, all over the world, is concentrated typically in very few hands. And so there's an outsized impact that some of these core families can have. So take us through a little bit about how you train that next generation of philanthropic leaders.
Okay, so there is a age-old story in family wealth that goes like this: shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. That story means that grandpa built the business, the second generation learned a little bit, the third generation lost it. We're helping to change that narrative by helping the younger people from these very wealthy families get involved in social impact from an early age. They learn humility, they learn the value of giving away money and learning the great joy that comes from that, learning the strategy of doing it well, and then ultimately also learning about investing. So we're organizing investment trips to the region, we're organizing philanthropic trips to the region. We're helping many young people from these business-owning families learn the moving parts of their family business empires so that they can get excited about the causes of the Amazon and then plug in the needs of the Amazon into what they have at their disposal, whether it's investment, wealth, philanthropy, or an operating business.
And it's interesting because you talk about sort of that family office model. The families have different kinds of businesses. Often that third generation you're talking about has had things in a sense handed to them on a platter, right? The grandparents have worked really hard. The parents have rolled up their sleeves and worked in that environment and continued the business. And so everything's been easy for that third generation. And so I love the work that you're doing because that really helps. You look at our wall of philanthropy, we talk about how do we build a culture of philanthropy. Really, how do we get engagement and training so that the individuals that have access to those resources, to those systems, will apply them, right? I don't care what cause you pick. That's up to you, right? If you're passionate about sustainability, if you're passionate about the Amazon, that's an amazing cause, right? But there's dozens, there's hundreds of causes that go on. We want to make sure people are involved with something. And so I love the fact that you're really making that effort to train them, because even if you don't have them align with your cause, you're doing good for the world because you're going to teach them how they can make an impact somewhere else.
One of the very first philanthropic families that I work with, there was this sort of emotional angst inside the family. The family members had fought about the story of the family business. What did dad or granddad really want? And then they got involved in philanthropy, and they started giving away money to help prevent the spread of AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa. And it brought this new kind of joy to the family that so when they would get together for Thanksgiving dinner, instead of the focus of conversation being, a fight about family business, it became a fight over how to use the family money to make the world a better place. It was actually a beautiful, virtuous, and it wasn't a fight, it was a collaboration that made all of these people better as human beings. And as a result, there was less depression, less substance abuse, greater mental health.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed the conversation. I know there's so much depth that we need to go into. I'm going to hand you your card here to stick up on the wall of philanthropy and have you find a spot. You can put it up there. And we'll look forward to working with you and collaborating to see how we can change that and impact that cause, and also getting you involved with our Sports Philanthropy World Conference in Chicago, June 26th and 27th.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
And for all of our viewers and listeners, this is Roy Kessel signing off for Sports Philanthropy Network, live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Please remember to live generously.